Hey everyone, welcome to Reality TV News Update, the place where we bring you the latest updates, fun moments, and behind-the-scenes stories you won't want to miss. The night was quiet beyond reason. Wind moved through the tall grass like a slow breath. Keanu stood near the edge of the old road with his hands in his pockets and his thoughts heavy. He had no idea that danger was already moving toward him through the darkness. Far behind him, a figure followed with careful steps and a sharp knife hidden beneath a dark coat. The man who followed had waited a long time for this moment. He believed fate had pushed him here after every loss and every lie he ever swallowed. His heart had hardened into something cold and careful. He told himself he was right. He told himself this was justice. Still, his hands trembled each time the blade touched his palm. Keanu walked toward his home with steady steps. The house stood at the edge of the field, with one soft light glowing from the front window. Inside, his wife moved through the kitchen while quietly preparing tea. She believed the world was calm. She believed the night was safe. The wind shifted. Keanu felt something change, though he could not explain it. He stopped walking for a moment and looked behind him. The road was empty. The field was empty. The quiet returned. He continued on. The man followed again with his pulse racing harder. He tightened his grip on the knife and whispered a name that no one else could hear. His breath came fast. There was no turning back now. Keanu reached the edge of the porch. The wooden steps were worn and soft beneath his boots. The door was only a few steps away. Inside the house, the kettle began to steam. His wife smiled to herself as she set 2 cups on the table. She did not hear the footsteps outside. The man closed the distance. Each step felt slow and heavy. All the anger that had lived inside him for years pushed him forward. He lifted the knife as he moved. Keanu heard a sound behind him and turned. His eyes widened with surprise. There was only a second to react. The man rushed forward without a word. The struggle was fast and desperate. Keanu fought with everything he had, though he was unarmed. They fell against the porch railing and crashed to the ground. The night seemed to hold its breath. The wind still moved, but no sound escaped either man. The man struck with the blade in a final act driven by fear and fury. Keanu grew still. The fight ended as quickly as it had begun. The field returned to silence. The door to the house opened. His wife stepped onto the porch and called his name. Her voice carried softly into the night. She took a step forward and saw his body on the ground. For a moment, her mind refused to understand what her eyes were seeing. She moved toward him in shock and fell to her knees beside him. She touched his face and whispered his name again and again. The man stood a few steps away, watching her with a hollow expression. She looked up at him with eyes filled with fear and sorrow. She tried to stand, but her legs would not obey. The man walked closer with slow steps. His face showed no victory and no relief. Only emptiness remained. He raised the knife again with trembling hands. The tears on her face caught the faint glow from the porch light. She closed her eyes and whispered her final prayer. The night swallowed the last sound. When it was over, the man stood alone beneath the low sky. The house lights still burned. The kettle still steamed on the stove. Everything else felt unreal to him. He had reached the end of his path and found nothing waiting there. He dropped the knife into the grass and stepped backward. His breathing shook as though his body was trying to pull itself apart. He looked at the home that had once been filled with warmth and life. Now it was silent. The man fled into the dark field and did not look back. His footsteps faded into the earth and the wind covered the last trace of his passing. Morning came slowly. Light touched the edges of the field and the quiet road. A bird cried out from the tree line. The world moved forward unaware of the tragedy from the night before. Neighbors later found the open door and the stillness inside. The cup sat untouched on the table. The kettle had long since boiled dry. News spread through the town like a shadow. People spoke in low voices. They shook their heads and wondered how such a thing could happen in a place that once felt safe. Stories were told about Keanu and his kindness, about how he always helped others without asking for anything in return, about his wife, whose laughter had once filled the room where now only silence remained. The man who had done it walked through another city by then. He avoided mirrors. He avoided crowds. His sleep was broken by dreams that he could never escape. He learned that revenge did not bring peace. It only opened a deeper wound. The knife had ended 2 lives, but it had also destroyed his own. Years passed. The house was eventually sold. New voices filled the rooms. New lights shone through the windows. Children ran across the same porch where tragedy had once settled like frost. The field remained. The wind still moved through the grass. The road remained quiet at night. Only memory lingered, and memory never fades. Down on the quiet road with heavy silence. Keanu walked alone beneath a sky without stars. His steps were slow and thoughtful, as if his mind carried a weight his body could barely bear. Somewhere behind him, a man followed with careful motion and a sharp knife held low at his side. The man had once been someone different. Long before this night, he had known hope and warmth. Time had changed him. Loss had shaped him. Anger had rebuilt him into something cold and narrow. Every step he took felt like the final choice of his life. Keanu reached the end of the road where his house stood with a single light glowing through the front window. Inside, his wife prepared a late meal and waited for his return. She believed he was safe. She believed the world still made sense. The wind shifted and carried the sound of footsteps. Keanu slowed and turned his head as if listening to something unseen. The road behind him looked empty. He dismissed the feeling and continued forward. The man moved closer as the distance closed. His breath grew tight. The knife felt heavier with every step. Fear trembled inside him, but he did not stop. This moment had grown inside his thoughts for too long to turn away now. Keanu reached the porch and placed one foot on the first step. That was when the man rushed forward from the dark. Keanu turned too late. Their bodies collided in sudden struggle beneath the dim porch light. Keanu fought with instinct and strength, driven by surprise and will to live. The man struck again and again, with motion filled by all the pain he carried. The night seemed to hold its breath as the struggle ended. Keanu fell silent beneath the weight of the moment. The porch light flickered softly, as if unsure whether to stay on. The front door opened. His wife stepped outside and called his name. Her voice broke the stillness like fragile glass. She saw his body on the ground and stopped moving. Her mind froze as the truth reached her in waves too strong to resist. She dropped to her knees beside him and reached for his face. Tears fell without sound. The man stood nearby, watching her as if trapped inside the final moment of his own creation. She looked up and saw him holding the knife. Fear filled her eyes, but also confusion and disbelief. She tried to stand, but her strength had left her body. The man walked forward slowly. His hands heavy, his showed no victory, only emptiness remained. He lifted the knife one final time as the weight of everything he had become pressed down on him. The night swallowed the last echo of sound. When it was over, the porch stood empty again. The light still glowed. The wind moved through the grass as if nothing had changed. The man stepped back into the darkness and disappeared beyond the edge of the road. Each step he took felt heavier than the last. The knife fell from his hand into the grass as he fled. Inside the house, the unfinished meal still waited on the table. Steam rose slowly from cooling food. 2 chairs stood across from each other as if still expecting company. Morning arrived with pale light and soft clouds. Birds sang from the trees, unaware of the sorrow below them. Neighbors would later discover the open door and the silence inside. The town changed after that day. People spoke in softer voices. Doors were locked earlier at night. Trust moved more slowly between strangers. Stories of Keanu spread through memory. People remembered his kindness and the way his laughter once filled rooms with ease. They remembered his wife and the warmth in her smile. The house did not stay empty forever. New people moved in years later and painted the walls and filled the rooms with different sounds. Children played on the same porch where sorrow once stood. The road remained quiet. The field remained wide. The wind continued its endless movement through tall grass. The man who had done it wandered far from that place. Sleep never came easily. Dreams followed him like shadows that refused to fade. Each night he walked again through the same moment he could never undo.
He learned that revenge is a hunger that never fills. He learned that destruction only multiplies itself. The knife had ended 2 lives and had taken his own peace forever. Time passed in its endless march. Seasons changed, trees grew and lost their leaves. Rain washed the road again and again, yet memory stayed rooted beneath everything. Some nights when the wind moved just right, people swore they could feel the past in the air. A quiet weight that lingered without sound or shape. Life continued, because it always does. But something invisible was left behind, and it never truly left that place. The porch still stood. The light still shined at times through new windows. The road still carried footsteps into unknown futures. And somewhere far away, a man lived with the silence he had created, and it followed him forever.